We are in Michigan. So behind me is Lake Michigan, and way behind there, that island back there, is actually Mackinac Island. So we have been hanging out here for the weekend, and we are going to be here for the rest of the weekend. So tomorrow morning we are leaving. But it's been absolutely beautiful, and I've absolutely loved it. I've put a bunch of footage together and everything. So I don't want to bore you guys with my vacation details or anything like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a kind of montage of a bunch of the stuff I saw, a bunch of the stuff that I did, and then I'm going to go ahead and put it at the end so you can see it. I am kind of boring as compared to, I guess, most YouTube vloggers. You know, I'm not skydiving or doing anything like that, but I like to enjoy nature, and this is a really beautiful place to do it. So I'm going to go ahead and put that montage at the end. So let's get the circuit menu. I wanted to get something that was accustomed to Mackinac Island and kind of something you could only get there or within that area. So what I ended up coming up with is this doll right here. So they sell these dolls everywhere. They're called Indian dolls. So they sell them everywhere around Mackinac Island, Mackinaw City, and St. Ignus. I picked this one up at Castle Rock in St. Ignus, and I thought this would just be a really cool thing to actually add into a circuit board, because this doesn't actually have a circuit board into it. But I thought how cool it would be to put a circuit board in this and then circuit bend it, because it already has this very exotic, nice look to it. So I ended up having this, and I'm not super fond of the way this looks. It's just going to end up kind of meh. So I'm going to take the circuit board out of this, and I'm not going to waste the doll. I'm actually going to try to mount as much of this stuff on to here as I can. But the circuit board's going to fit really, really nicely. It may be a bit too big, but we will cross that bridge when we get there. But it looks to me like it's going to be a really good fit for this. And this circuit board actually talks, and I believe it to be circuit bendable. So what I'm going to do first is go ahead and cut the circuit board out, and then we're going to cut into the back of this and then add it in. Okay, so now we have the circuit board taken out. As you can see, it looks like it's meant to be there. So I actually messed around with this board for a while before I found out this resistor was the one that we needed to be shorting out to get the speed. These kind of gave me some mixed signals all around here. One cool thing I did was one cool thing I found because of something I did was I took this resistor and I was poking around a bit and I actually found another glitch that is here. So, let's see if I can get back on it. So it's this very staticky, almost distorted sound. So we're definitely going to be adding that in as well. That's going to be soldering onto this micro resistor. Now micro resistors are a bit different. If you can see, this trace actually runs down, and then I can't really see where it runs to, but I'm going to be figuring it out, because micro resistors, a lot of times you can solder onto one part of it if you are skilled enough, but when you go to solder onto the other side, a lot of times they'll stick onto the soldering iron and pull the entire resistor out, and most of the time when that happens, you don't really get the circuit board back. I mean, you can replace it with other types of resistors, but these boards are made so where this is just a flat surface underneath here. Unlike these resistors, micro resistors actually don't stick through the board at all. So a lot of times when you lose a micro resistor, it's kind of board over for you. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to trace this down. We're going to solder onto this, and at the same time we're going to solder onto our points we need to make the tempo tone control. Now we test our points. So there's a static. You see these points can get pretty heavy, but when they touch each other it actually stops it. So we know we do need a resistor in between that, but it can be a very low resistance resistor. So it's very, very high. And that one stops as well when we hit top note. Or, yeah, so that is stopping. I was wondering if it was just so fast that it was speeding through. This one should be able to touch. Alright, so you see these two are actually touching, and we're not getting that deep tone that we would actually like to get. There is a very common reason that I'm guessing this is happening. So if you look, I actually soldered onto the ground here, and I don't believe it's the true ground, and it is not. So this ground actually goes out to, okay, so this ground actually goes out to a button, and what we actually need is the true ground, which appears to be right above it. So it's this black wire right here is the actual true ground, and that's the reason this isn't giving us that deep tone that we want. So we're going to go ahead and resolder this onto here. And looks like our best bet is going to be right here next to the wire. So it's soldered on here onto the natural ground. So let's go ahead and see. There's a high pitch. And there's our high pitch as well. So I'm not going to pretend to know what's happening here. This is the natural ground. This is the natural setup of what should be giving us our normal tempo tone control. What I'm going to do out of curiosity is go ahead and explore these other two wires and see if they give us the effect we're looking for. Yeah, so that's giving us a very, very deep tone. All the way to stop. So Luckily, we found this other glitch before we found this one, because that's going to be the one that's going to be mounting off of the deep tone. Now, I don't know exactly why this is giving us, you know, the opposite reaction of what you'd expect. There is a science behind circuit bending. I just don't know that science, and that's part of the magic of it, I believe, is that when things are supposed to do something, they end up doing something totally different, and then you kind of have to switch up what you were doing, and that kind of adds to the art to me. It's not just mathematics. It's not just, you know, plug this in and do this. It's really just exploring the board and trying to find out what is inside of it, as opposed to just adding a couple calculations and putting stuff together. So I'm not going to try to learn why exactly it's doing that. We are just going to roll with the punches. So here are speaker wires. They are these two green ones right here. So we're going to see if we can add an LED into this instrument. That's barely giving anything. That's also barely giving anything. I don't know if you can see that. Very, very small amount of LEDs coming on. Just very small amount of light. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to tap in to the actual positive end, and then we're going to tap into the speaker ground. Then that's going to give us the effect we're looking for. Actually, it looks a little bit cooler than I was expecting because it's changing colors as we go. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and hook in the positive end and the negative on the speaker. is my phone and my headphones were both dying, so I did have to charge those. But I went ahead and installed a couple things. Mainly this. This is a button that allows us to bypass actually skipping the belly button. And how you do that is you just find the points that are on the circuit board for the button, and then you install your own button. So really simple. Then they actually have another one, and you can see this, that there's two wires that run into the feet, and then you have these touch points on the bottom. And then I don't see this actually doing anything even when it was all together. But it's this button right here. So I go and cut it out, and then I made a button out of that. I'm going to run these two down, and we're actually going to install these back to the way they were so they can still touch together. I thought maybe this gives a different sound, but it doesn't seem to. So we'll see if it ends up doing anything. Sometimes you can install this stuff and then play around with it a bit, and it'll give a different effect. And then the next thing is a on-off switch, a master on-off switch, which is really simple. All we do is we take the positive, we cut it, we put a switch in between it. So obviously I need more length on this one, so I went ahead and unsoldered it, soldered a new wire onto this, taped it up, ran a switch out. So that's going to be a master on-off switch just in case it crashes. And that's going to give us complete control over everything. So now what we are going to do is we are going to go ahead and start installing everything onto the doll.
flawless.
So now we're going to be trying to fit the board back into here. And as you see, we have a lot of hot glue on here so our solder points don't pop off. So this board is more than likely not going to fit back in here. So yeah, it's not going to fit back in there. So what we're going to do, and this is a good skill to go ahead and develop, is kind of modifying the inside of the cases to fit what you're putting in them. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put this in here, and we're just going to try to work these out, and then by doing so we're going to have enough room that we can actually just hold the board in place with hot glue. So now that we have most of this pulled out, we should have a lot more room to actually fit this inside of there, so no longer restricted. So I'm going to go ahead and put some hot glue down here, and then we are simply going to put the board in. Just try to work it down. There we go. So that's fitting in nicely. Now there is a trick to this as well. So obviously the wires are going to be sticking out. So what we're going to need to do is we are going to need to find a place on the board where we can go ahead, or I'm sorry, not on the board, on the project enclosure right here, where we can go ahead and cut out to the side and then feed all of these wires through. And then I always hot glue afterwards, so there isn't really an art to this. It's more of just clearing this space away. So we're just going to cut right here. Then get a lot of this off here. So that way this will not crush the wires when we close it. That should be good. So now one thing I like to do is go ahead and roll the wires around. It kind of tightens them up a bit so you don't have to worry about them wiggling around and coming out. I'm going to go ahead and glue these speaker wires down here. to go with that. You see, this can sometimes be kind of a pain. You just keep working at it and eventually it will go together. There we go. We can go and put the screws on. Now that we have it all together, we're going to test it out. And if possible, when you're putting it together, especially in like toys like this, go ahead and try to run the audio while you do it. So what is really cool is this button is actually functioning now. This is giving us a whole new sound. But sometimes things work out. And this is obviously the overpowering sound. So everything is working out good. And then we have these two wires which are actually going to get attached into the legs again. So we're restoring original function of that, and that's going to be mounted on the front of the body. So it's going to be a bit creepy, but we'll get into that.
be away on schedule in the next couple of minutes. So, flight time will be 9 hours and 40 minutes. We'll eventually reach a cruising altitude of 35,000 feet. Do our best to give you a smooth flight over turbulence and zones of possibility. For that reason, it's company policy to recommend you keep your latch straps securely fastened.
Words and ideas can change the world. A little secret for you. We don't read and write poetry because it's cute. We read and write poetry because we are members of the human race, and the human race is filled with passion, beauty, romance, love. These are what we stay alive for. And you are here. Life exists in identity. The powerful play goes on and you may contribute a verse. The powerful play goes on and you may contribute a verse.
you a smooth flight over turbulence and zones of possibility. For that reason, it seems to be policy to recommend you keep your nose securely far from the seatbelt sign is switched off. It's switched off. The turbulence then ensure also please note this is do our best to give you a smooth flight over turbulence and zones of possibility. For that reason, it seems to be policy to recommend you keep your nose securely far from the flight.